Okay, good morning, everyone. We'll kick proceedings off. I think we've got everyone joining us now. So my name's Steve Dawes. I'm the Services Director at Servium. Welcome to the next in our series of INOOT webinars. Well, this is actually the start of season 2. So we're sort of really proud of that, kicking off today. So 7th of June might be famous for a number of things, like it's 77, it was the Queen's Silver Jubilee. In 1990, British beef exports ban was lifted. So to us, 7th of June is more important because it started season 2. So welcome everyone today. Hopefully, those who registered early, you've got your crunchies. So hope you got your brew, put your feet up and enjoy the sort of next 25, 30 minutes. And the sort of whole rationale around our INOOT webinar series is to sort of explore some of the vendors, some of the technologies, to watch some of the trends in the marketplace, things that we believe that can deliver sort of business advantage, but really disruptive technologies. So today is all about HP, Nimble, and Infosight. So I'm kindly joined today by 2 people, actually. Steve Walker from HP. Good morning, Steve. Welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be here.
And also Mark Reed, our Servium CIO, and we're going to talk a little bit about Mark's involvement, but welcome today again, Mark.
Yeah, good morning all.
So, thanks for joining. Let's kick proceedings off. And I just want to give a little bit of background on Servium because some of you may or may not know about us and what we can do. And certainly in our relationship with HPE, it's quite sort of relevant today. So we are a great provider of essential IT and a troubleshooter, putting customers at the center of everything we do. And we do that by adding value, delivering great account management, really sort of putting ourselves in your shoes. We've got a team that are very accessible, very responsive, and we believe we go the extra mile for our customers. So we think we create a lot of value. Our approach, again, and this is our Servium Pathfinder proposition, is very much to put you at the center, but understand no matter how small or how large your requirement is, to work with you on the strategy, the design, help you implement and support. But the key thing for us is reviewing that at the end of the day, making sure that we've delivered to our expectations within your timescales and budget. So that's a key stage of our sort of cradle to grave approach. To help deliver that, we use our services ecosystem, which gives you access to great breadth and depth of resource, technical experts, subject matter experts like Steve, who's joined us today. So there's a lot that we can offer there around our sort of capabilities. Today, we're focusing on the data element of our Pathfinders because it's all around Nimble and Infosight. So we think there's some great technology there. And the reason Mark's here is because we actually use Nimble ourselves. So yes, we have some really good references. We've done some successful implementations around Nimble, but I think being able to demonstrate that we're using it ourselves shows that we believe in the technology. So Steve, over to you. You're our expert today, so I'll pass the floor to you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. So yeah, and what I've done today is, well, I'll just introduce myself first. So yeah, Steve Walker, and my role at HP is a pre-sales manager for the territory storage team. And I came into HP from the Nimble acquisition. And yeah, so today what I've done is planned some content specifically around, why Nimble is such an incredible technology, and it's essentially built with clear idea of being easy to consume. Also, essentially the file system that we have gives us the power to decouple the performance that's needed, and that means that we can drive really cost-effective ways of how you manage your data. And then what we also do is we give incredible resiliency in different ways, which I'll show in terms of our availability of 6 nines, which I'll show in the next few slides on how we're able to deliver that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you the two key elements of what Nimble is about and what helps really drive the experience that customers get through using the technology. And there's these two key parts. The first part is the multi-cloud Flash Fabric, and the second part is HP Infosight. And those two parts are essentially a platform that allows customers to drive these three key areas, which are being built for cloud, AI-driven, and having that mobility of data to be able to be placed where it's needed at the most cost-effective way. So really, when it comes to what we've done with Nimble, the benefits that are truly game-changing for our customers. So we provide a predictive support experience. So with Nimble, it's always been, and still to this day, we have level 1 and level 2 support completely automated by the automation that we provide with Infosight. And this helps us really drive the resolutions of support cases and be incredibly efficient on the quality of support. But what also we have is incredible efficiency on how, as I mentioned before, that ease of consuming storage and data is taken to a different level with Nimble, which means that from an operation perspective, it becomes a lot easier to handle how our data is managed. And I touched on it before around this aspect of how we're able to guarantee beyond 6 nines availability. And that is measured in terms of what we see in the over 30,000 Nimble arrays today. We are able to show, and I'll explain why we're able to deliver such high levels of availability. So what we've got with Nimble is we have a single architecture, which is effectively the software that's known as Nimble OS. So Nimble OS will sit on any of our arrays, whether it be the original hybrid arrays that we brought to market in 2012, all the way through to the all-flash array, and even what we've just released this week in terms of cloud volumes. And this provides what we call the multi-cloud Flash Fabric. So essentially, data can live in any of these systems and have seamless data movement through all of this area, be Flash optimized, so driving the performance, give flexibility on scaling, so you can start incredibly small in terms of with a Nimble array of sub 10 terabytes, yet scale capacity up into multi-petabytes worth of storage without any disruption, without any forklift upgrades. And even from a performance perspective, scale very, very from the entry level all the way up to beyond millions of IOPS. So it is an incredibly powerful technology. What we also provide with that, though, is a management that is simple and unified across all of these systems. And we also give that mobility of where the data can sit. So this could sit either on a collection of different Nimble arrays, whether it be for production DR or even clustered together to provide different service levels based on the requirements of those applications. Or we have even recently announced the ability to seamlessly move data from Nimble into other HP technologies. So things like store once, or even to 3PAR with HP's RMC technology. So again, really allowing that data mobility, which is crucial. So I mentioned before about the scale to fit and that flexibility. So Nimble really has, I think, a very unique way of how we are designed in terms of the file system called Castle. And I won't go into too much detail on that today. If you do want to go into a bit more detail, there's a great video on Servium's YouTube channel for the INOOT on the sofa with a colleague of mine, Nick Dyer, and he really goes into a lot more detail. But essentially what it means is when it comes to being able to scale to fit, is this flexibility of how you can start small and know confidently that you can grow your data in whichever way it needs, whether it be for capacity. So we can add non-disruptively capacity to the array. It's a simple process, and it's really there just to add more capacity to grow that system. But then when it comes to performance, because the way that the file system works, we can essentially non-disruptively deliver higher performance by moving people from, or customers from, a particular array up to the next level. And because of the way it's architected, this single architecture, essentially this can be done without any disruption, and typically is even done in normal working hours, because of the way that Nimble's designed allows that simple risk-free approach to handling any sort of upgrades. But then the flexibility goes even further. So if you do require even more than just scaling outward, up and down, you can actually scale out and provide up to 4 Nimble arrays managed as one and drive the capacity outwards. So this really allows customers to know confidently that they've got the ability to move with the investment with Nimble going forward, whichever way they need to for any component in terms of their way that their data may grow and the demands around that data. What was also really crucial with Nimble was that we provided very much an app-centric design on how we deliver data to applications. So essentially what we've done with, when a volume is created, we're aware of what that application is. So if it is a VMware environment, we will understand, and metadata will be assigned to that volume so that we can then understand how best the performance should be for that application. So with VMware, it would likely be 4K. But then when you compare that with, say, a database, whether it be Oracle or SQL, the beauty of Nimble is we have this flexibility to provide applications the right profile for those performance requirements. So with SQL, we'll provide different block size compared to VMware, and this allows us to be incredibly efficient with how we then handle either the data efficiencies that we have on the array. So things like inline deduplication, compression, thin provisioning, they can all be suited for the right application. But also then how the provisioning of that applications are, whether we use integration with things like VMware or directly into SQL Server, or even into more of the more modern approaches with regards to containers and with Docker. We have these tight plugins that allow applications to drive how the data is consumed. Also other features where, for example, there's lots of requirements around access to quick data and copies of that data, then we can provide efficient copies of clones, so incredibly quick, and also zero space. We can provide multiple copies of data. Powerful part of the file system that we have is that we have the ability to provide efficient snapshots that then become fundamental to being able to drive data protection and also replicate across to different disaster recovery locations. And even we provided a software encryption as part of the design that allows us to have a flexibility of how we choose to, our customers can choose to actually encrypt the data based on the requirements of that application. And underpinning all of this is the ability of Infosight tracking this data, whether it be the metadata, and we understand exactly how all of these different applications run, and we then profile those applications to then help us drive how the performance of the arrays can be improved going forward, whether it be for quality of the performance or reliability reasons. We can understand exactly where that information is. And we also expose elements to for customers to gain insight of their data, so that whether it be for capacity planning, forecasting, or even integrating up into the out of the storage stack and into the applications themselves, and seeing how that data is obviously being monitored. So it is a real focus on delivering for the applications and the outcomes that's required. So I mentioned before about the guaranteed 6 nines availability. This is where we have published this figure based on what we see from Infosight in terms of all of the beyond 30,000 arrays. We are actually know exactly how the availability of all of those are, and are able to guarantee that they are beyond 6 nines across the whole of our number of customers that are using Nimble today. Underpinning the actual arrays, I mentioned we have an ease of consumption. So customers will never configure the RAID on the array. That is already taken care of. And the great thing that we have with our triple RAID parity is it gives an incredible high usable to raw conversion. So you get a lot of efficiency on the amount of storage, but then we also have the ability to lose 3 disks and still maintain the data integrity on a Nimble array. So we have never lost data in any of our customers, and based on this design, which is a phenomenal part of the integrity of how Nimble manages the data in all of our customers' systems. I mentioned before, we have data protection based on snapshotting, and customers will use different ways to manage that, whether it be through just the GUI itself with Nimble, or even in terms of with a third-party backup technology, whether it be HP's RMC, as I mentioned earlier, or even a common integration is with the likes of Veeam and Commvault. So we allow those technologies to be the single pane of glass for managing the whole backup infrastructure, but then using API calls into the Nimble array to provide even further data protection and fundamentally provide incredibly quick ways to recover from any particular reason that you have in terms of data recovery. And what we did also is allow with data encryption at rest, and do it for either a selection of volumes, whether it be one, or even the whole of the array. So this allows customers to be very, very flexible on how those applications are then set. Whether you need to encrypt the data, you can do that on a per volume basis. So it just allows that flexibility of choosing where you need to encrypt data and provide that compliance. So it's a really great time, and actually we've got an announcement this week. I don't know if you've seen in the press, but we announced the HP Cloud Volumes was released this week in the UK. Now there is another webinar planned in August with Servium. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but if you are interested, I'd really recommend you looking out for that next series in later on in a couple of months. But essentially what we've got with the ability of Cloud Volumes is to provide the same functionality that you get on-prem with a Nimble array. So this is an enterprise, highly available storage array, but actually have it as a service, but close enough to either Azure and AWS in the UK, but outside of the actual those data centers. And this allows customers to really have a true hybrid data storage management idea of being able to then manage where their data is best suited. So that could be a case that you decide to present some Cloud Volume storage up to AWS for a particular workload, but then you're not, because the data sits outside of that area, it then allows you to then easily move that data, whether it be back on-prem or even unmount it from AWS and start to serve it from Azure. So it really takes that power of how you manage your data in a different way, and it's really exciting times that now we've now got it in the UK. So yeah, really it is something to be considering if you are looking to use data in one of these particular providers. So that was the story around the multi-cloud Flash Fabric. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we have essentially the platform is also managed by Infosight. This is the part that I wanted to tie in why Infosight is incredibly important to the whole experience of what we do with our multi-cloud Flash Fabric. So just for the benefit of anyone who's not aware of what we do with Infosight, it is essentially what we've done with the Nimble arrays is every Nimble array has thousands of software sensors built into the actual Nimble OS. And each day we send telemetry data up to a big data lake in the cloud called Infosight. And it's incredibly high, the numbers of telemetry data that we send on per array. It's something up to 70 million data points per day per array. So it's trillions of data that's continually growing into Infosight. And what that allows us to do is provide machine learning and predictive analysis on that data and use the collective information across the whole install base to drive and improve the experience of how your data is served on your on-prem Nimble solutions. So it is fundamental to what makes Nimble such an incredible technology is the platform of Infosight, automating a lot of those tasks that generally from the traditional arrays that we've seen in the last 10, 20 years are not necessarily done in that way. So it is such an incredible part of what Nimble's doing. And with HPE now, we've seen a real drive to use this technology, not just now on Nimble, but on other storage systems like 3PAR and now into the compute, and recognizing the way that this is such an incredible part of how customers can gain advantage by using this methodology. So it's taking a step back, and if you look at how an infrastructure without Infosight happens, it can be a case when there is a problem in a particular environment, so a particular issue happens. What will be the case here is, as an end user and administrator, they, almost like a firefighter, have to start to react to that particular issue. So they'll start to look at, say, things like logs, interpreting data on site, and at some point, you start to then decide, well, I've tried all of my avenues, now I need to call support. And generally speaking, that would consider that could be, quite a simple process, but in fact, in a traditional vendor's approach, that can usually add to the frustration. And the reason being is that you're then having to go through a triage system of getting through first, second line, sending data through FTP or logs of information, and people analyzing that information. And that whole aspect really does become very disruptive. The time associated to the business can be really impactful. And that case can take, anything from hours to days to weeks. And obviously that can really impact how an environment is then managed on those particular issues. Whereas with Infosight, because we're collecting data consistently every 5 minutes, all this telemetry data, it's then allowed us to essentially automate the whole first and second line support. And I mentioned before that here we've got 93% of cases are automatically created by Infosight itself through the predictive analytics. And out of those figures, 86% are actually closed automatically. So this allows us to be incredibly efficient on how we handle our support experience. So if you do have to call for support, then essentially within less than a minute, you'll be through to a level 3 engineer who is highly skilled and also has all of the data coming from your array at their fingertips to start resolving those challenges. So the experience of Nimble customers when dealing with support is just at a different industry leading level. So this is where we're able to show high levels of customer satisfaction. And in terms of independent validation through NPS, we've got an 85 score, which is an incredibly high score based on testament to how we're able to deliver that experience when challenges are happening in our customers' infrastructure. And the last part is really about this idea that we've built is on timeless storage. So this is like the ethos of what Nimble is based on, in terms of we have an all-inclusive software license. So what you know is when you buy into Nimble, you'll get everything that's in there today. And then as it's developed going forward, there won't be a case that a new feature comes along and you won't get access to that. It'll just be incorporated. We also have an aspect of having a flat support model. So whether you're buying 1 year support or up to 5 to 7 years support, you're confidently going to get that flat level and be able to predict that cost. We then mentioned around the aspect of having no forklift upgrade. So, if you buy today, going forward, when you invest, you're not going to have to throw the technology away for any particular reason. And we have these guarantees, whether it be for the 6 nines guarantee, and we also have a satisfaction guarantee. So this essentially gives customers confidence that if you are expecting a particular outcome, if in the first 30 days you believe there's some issue that you're not satisfied with, we will work with you to essentially make you satisfied. Or in that rare occasion that doesn't happen, we'll actually allow you to give that box without any sort of impact on obviously returning it. And we've just recently announced the Store More guarantee. So this is where we can essentially commit to a guaranteed amount of data reduction through the ability of us doing things like inline deduplication, inline compression, and essentially allow you to get that confidence that we know we're going to deliver that with a commitment that if we didn't, we'll actually give you the additional capacity. So, and the last part is really where we see customers being able to provide an optional way of adding controller refreshes in 3 years' time. So it allows you to provide a predictable way of having future performance added to your system. And for the way that Nimble is designed, it means that you can be confident that it's going to scale going forward in terms of that. So this is really the idea and the ethos of what timeless storage provides. And it is really, if you have got some interest, definitely look on HPE's website for timeless storage and we can provide information. So that was my slides today. I hope that was useful. And if you've got any questions at all, I'm happy to...
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that, Steve. I really appreciate it. I think, what that sort of highlights, the combination of sort of the predictive flash storage on Nimble, and then the whole sort of AI and artificial intelligence, those sort of things combined really makes the whole Nimble Infosight proposition quite unique in the marketplace. So thanks for that. We'll take some questions at the moment. Everyone will have the option to do that via the Zoom client and ask any specific questions. So thanks for that, Steve. Really appreciate it. It's been a great insight into the whole Nimble Infosight proposition. And as I mentioned before, we've got lots and lots of great references and successful implementations from a Nimble perspective, but we're using it ourselves. So we're kindly joined today by Mark Reed, our CIO, who's going to just explain briefly why we went to Nimble and the fact that we're actually using it, as well as a number of our customers, just means that we are happy to drink our own champagne. So, Mark, welcome again, and over to you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So, as it's already kind of been said, even though there were many customer references we could have used for the webinar, we decided it would be a good idea to share our own experiences of using Nimble for our own in-house use. This is because it's good to be able to actually speak with confidence from first-hand experience. So why did we choose Nimble? Well, as a growing company with an ever-increasing user base, customer base, and therefore data storage requirements, we felt the need to implement a more robust and scalable solution. We were moving from a server storage model to a Hyper-V clustered and wanted a centralized storage solution for it. Obviously, like most people, budget was always a consideration. And through selling the solution to our customers, we knew that Nimble was going to give us what we believed to be the best value for money, and I believe it actually has. So after 3 years of very smooth and satisfactory service from our first Nimble box, we could see that we ideally needed to upgrade to a larger capacity, newer and better version, one that would see us through the next few years. The upgrade itself to the second unit, which was a hybrid unit, enabled us to see immediate performance improvements to the speed of the core applications. But it gave us a chance to implement a better DR solution by utilizing the original unit in an off-site location and enabling the replication features that have been discussed. I obviously delegated this task to true technical staff, but with very good support from Nimble, it seemed to just be up and running very quickly and very easily. So this was a real win because it's meant that the investment 3 years earlier is still delivering business benefit today, some 4+ years down the line. The Infosight seems to do exactly what it's meant to do. And I'm really glad to say that we've not experienced any downtime at all attributed to the storage solution. So really everything that's been said today, I can kind of endorse from first-hand experience. It works, it delivers, it does what we need it to do. It was seamless and easy to upgrade when we needed to. Overall, we're a very satisfied customer with our Nimble choice, and it does exactly what we need it to do. To be honest, there isn't really much more to say than that.
No, that's great, Mark. No, appreciate it. I think, again, from my experience, at sort of coalface, using the systems day in, day out, I know from first-hand experience, we've never suffered any downtime because of our storage. So that 6 nines guarantee that Steve talked about, it really does, it's true. So take some questions now, and thanks for that, Mark. Really appreciate you taking the time. You should see a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom client. So if there's any questions, then please start firing away. And we've got a couple already that have come in during the presentation. So these are mainly aimed at Steve. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Steve. First question from Andrew: what's the difference between an all-flash and a hybrid array?
Okay, Steve. So yeah, so the key difference really is between a hybrid flash system has some 7.2K nearline SAS drive, so essentially slow disks, and then we then have a small portion of flash purely there for the read caching. So the way the file system works, it allows us to essentially provide an incredible performance from a write perspective, and then the reads are essentially 95 to 99% of the time served from flash. So you're getting that all flash experience 95 to 99% of that time. The difference between that and the all flash is it's the same operating system, it's the same features, it's actually the same write performance, but when it comes to reads, you're going to get 100% access from SSD. So that's where obviously there's a key difference in terms of the all flash compared to the hybrid.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Question from Adrian about support outside the UK. How would that work? Because we do have customers that do have, might have head office in the sort of certain areas of the UK, but do have locations spread across the world. So how would the support work outside the UK, Steve?
So that's not a problem. We've got, in terms of the support, we have like a multilingual support center. It's a follow the sun support in terms of if the actual Nimble array, they require, people to call into support. And even from a point of sending kit across to another country, we have plenty of circumstances where customers are obviously in one country, but then are then sending their Nimble array or their infrastructure to another site, and it's all completely supported in most countries. So yeah, there's not necessarily any issue or concerns around that.
Okay, great, thanks. One from James about scaling all flash is normally very expensive. So what's different about Nimble?
Well, it's a great question. So in terms of the abilities that we've got, because of how Nimble's designed, is that we can give customers who necessarily want to get that all flash experience, but maybe don't have that ability of cost to do that. This is where the hybrid can really suit him fantastically. And then also because of the way that we handle the usable capacity on the arrays and how the file system works, the starting point of having amount of flash in the array, it means that it doesn't necessarily mean it's a high high point to go into. So it is really the way that we're designed that allows that efficiencies, and by using things like inline dedupe, inline compression, and being confident that you're going to get an effective storage, then means that you don't necessarily need to buy as much physical flash storage as well. So I'd say they're probably the key points that I'd really focus on when deciding what would be the best point commercially to buy the amount of storage.
Yeah, okay, great. One from Alex. How good is Nimble with databases such as SQL and Oracle? I'm assuming from an efficiency point of view or speed.
Yeah, I mean, again, because Nimble is amazingly good at mixed workloads. So databases tend to be, require very much like a latency focused, and that's a fantastic use case for using Nimble. The beauty is that you may decide to use it with databases and then have another workload like BDI or general VMs. And because the way it's designed, we can handle those mixed workloads together, and with Infosight tracking that, clearly see where we're able to provide those recommendations. So great question. Okay,
great. There's no more questions at the moment, Steve. So thanks everyone for asking. I was just going to sort of launch a poll now, just while I sort of summarise and close. And if everyone wouldn't mind sort of completing this, it's just to give us some feedback on today's webinar, and also so we can improve it for the ones that we come with in the not too distant future as part of season 2. One of the things that we've sort of agreed with Steve and the guys at HP is that anyone who's interested in the sort of Nimble Infosight, then we're sort of looking to set up a proof of concept so you can see the Nimble and Infosight in action. I think we're sort of good to go with that, aren't we, Steve?
Absolutely, yeah.
So anyone who's interested, then please let us know. There is an option to request that on the poll. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind everyone completing that just to give some feedback. But Steve, really appreciate you taking the time out today. That's been really useful. A great insight into the solution around Nimble and Infosight. And Mark, also thanks for taking the time out as well today, talking about our first-hand experience. But we have got other references as well that we can refer to. So everyone, hopefully you enjoyed that, found that useful. Give us the feedback via the poll. Like I say, this is first in season 2. The recording for this will be available later today, and we'll send a follow-up email so you'll have access to that initial recording in Zoom. And then obviously feel free to share that with your colleagues if you so wish. But also, as Steve mentioned, we've also got a YouTube channel where this will be published in a couple of weeks' time. So again, if you want to refresh or go back to it, or if you've got any colleagues you want to share this with, it will be on our YouTube channel, and as well as the on the sofa video with Nick Dyer around, which goes in a little bit more detail on Nimble. But so that all that information's there. The next webinar is in 2 weeks' time on the 21st of June, which is all around HP's Aruba networks, which is a sort of a user-centric look at connectivity and how Aruba can help gain visibility in what users are doing and identify sort of Wi-Fi application access issues. So we think, again, it's some innovative stuff coming from HP around the Aruba platform. If you have any further questions, then please get in touch with your account manager or drop me an email, and we'll look to answer those as quickly as possible. So thanks again, everyone, for taking the time out to join. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you found it useful today. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your Friday. Thank you.